Hey, everybody. Glad to be here with all of you tonight. We are going to have yet another great late night conversation. So let's do it.
Spoken of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, everyone. I am so glad that I'm here with you all tonight. This is the last live stream before the big day, because pretty soon I'm getting on a plane and getting myself to Chicago, and I'll be working with people in Chicago and doing classes and doing outreach and singing songs. And then the big day happens July 12th. And boy, is it going to be big. Wow. There's so many things. I don't want to give the show away. I don't want to give it away what's going to happen. I could tell you about all the great things and all the equipment we're getting and all the stuff that's happening. But if I do that, I'm going to give away some of the fun. I'm going to give away some of the details of the big day. So I got to hold off on that, I guess. But let me just assure you, it's going to be absolutely awesome, July 12th. Wow. So quick update on everything. Just a quick update. We are, just doing this tonight's stream, just like we always do. Opening remarks followed by roll call. And then I answer your questions for the rest of the night. So if you got something you want me to talk about in the second half of the show, all you need to do is send me a Rumble rant for the second half of the show, or you can cash at me at Caleb Maupin 22 for the second half of the show. The second half of the show is me answering your questions. That's what I do in the second half of the program, is I answer your questions. So send me your questions, Caleb Maupin 22 on Rumble rant on Cash App, or you can Rumble rant me the questions. Either way, I will get the questions and then I will answer the questions in the second half of the show. And it's always a lot of fun when we do that. So I am so excited. There's members of our community that I'm going to be meeting for the first time. David Fox is already in Chicago. I'm going to meet him and Patrick from Maine. And oh man, there are so many people in our community. And then there's also people I've met before. It's going to be like a reunion. Carl the Trinket Man, and and the Chicago people that are awesome. And oh man, I just start naming people off. I'm gonna forget somebody, and that won't be nice. So I'm not gonna do that. But it's really, really good. I am really excited. We are gonna score a win for anti-imperialism. It's gonna be pretty great. So we need you there. Come to Chicago on July 12th. It's gonna be tremendous. It is gonna be really, really awesome. Doors open at 9 a.m., coffee, donuts, and it'll be an all-day event, 3 different sessions, morning, afternoon, and evening. Music, dance performers, Scott Ritter, Angela McCurdle, Jeff Young, Keith Preston, Syed Husseini, music, and oh man, it's going to be good all around. It's going to be good all around. It's going to be great. I am very, very, very excited for the event. So, we need you there in Chicago. If you can't make it, send us a donation, but be there. And as I said before, questions can be sent for the second half of the show, Cash App or Rumble Rant. That's the way we do it. So, folks, glad you're here. I wish I could take you to a time in 400 BC the year 400 BC or so, to the temple in Al-Quds, Jerusalem. To one, and this happened many, many times. If you went to the temple in Jerusalem, the official temple where the kingdom of Judah, the kingdom of Israel, where they had their religious ceremonies that was kept by the temple priesthood, Holy of Holies, that whole thing. Outside the temple, you would see crowds, a crowd of thousands and thousands of poor people. Thousands and thousands of poor people outside the temple in Jerusalem, all wearing sackcloth, all gathered around one man who was on his knees crying for his nation, crying for the kingdom of Israel, the prophet Jeremiah, the weeping prophet. And I really wish I could go there too, honestly, and see that moment where all the poor people gathered outside the temple in Jerusalem to condemn the priesthood, the corrupt priesthood that was in bed with the corrupt, greedy rich, the priesthood that was sanctioning poor people being used as slave labor, the priesthood that was sanctioning orphans and widows being left idle and, being treated horrifically and left to starve on the street, the priesthood that was sanctioning human sacrifices and other crimes, and to see the prophet Jeremiah, the weeping prophet, not a priest, an ordinary man who had the fire of God within him and saw that if the evil of his day continued, that his nation would be destroyed. And so he gathered the poor and he gathered the masses of people to gather outside the temple and call out the rich and call out the corrupt priesthood that was facilitating the crimes of the rich, and say to them, if we don't repent, if we don't change our ways, if we don't start caring for the widows and orphans, and if we don't stop these brutal slave labor practices, and if we don't stop engaging in these disgusting human sacrifice rituals up on the mountains where we burn our babies to get good luck, if we don't change our ways and get back to our social contract, we will lose our nation. Our country will come apart. Jeremiah was a populist. Jeremiah was a revolutionary. And he wasn't trying to destroy the kingdom of Judah. He wasn't trying to destroy ancient Israel. He was trying to save it. He was trying to save his country, but he saw that the corrupt priesthood and the decadent rich were leading his country off the edge of a cliff. And if they did not repent and change their ways, the nation would be destroyed. And the prophet Jeremiah, he had a bold, booming voice, and he spoke in poetry, in words that were poetic. But yet, he was called the weeping prophet because so many days outside the temple, as he was building his mass movement of poor and working people, crying out for justice, he would fall upon his knees and just cry and weep for his country, and weep for his homeland, and weep for his people, for his nation. That was Jeremiah, the prophet Jeremiah. And I've spoken about the prophet Jeremiah and how important he was as a symbol of a revolutionary leader, as a symbol of a populist, as the prototype or the archetype of John the Baptist, eventually Jesus Christ. We've talked on these streams about the prophet Jeremiah before, but actually I'd like to speed forward about 400 years or so. I wish I could take you to ancient Rome, to ancient Rome on the Ides of March, March 15th, 44 BC, to the streets of this Italian city, this city on the Italian peninsula, the capital of the known world, when word went out among the people that Julius Caesar, Gaius Julius Caesar, the great victorious general, had been stabbed to death, had been murdered. And the people of Rome, not the aristocrats, not the landowners, but the people of Rome, the proletarians, filled with rage and anger that their champion, the one rich man who had protected them against the decadent rich, had been murdered and stabbed in the back many times, even by his trusted friends. And to hear the cry and rage of the Roman proletariat as they stormed into the streets with anger that their great hero, their great populari, their great populist leader had been killed. And they broke into the homes of the rich people and took their furniture and broke it apart and built a gigantic fire in the center of the Roman Forum. And they mournfully took the body of the great Julius Caesar to the funeral pyre and burned it and wept before the funeral pyre and called out the decadent, ruthless rich, the senators, Mark Antony and Brutus and all the other senators who had killed their great leader, their great champion. And while they were mourning for Julius Caesar, the man who had refused to be king, who on 3 different occasions they tried to put a crown on his head, and he had pushed the crown away on that Forum. They had tried to put a crown on Julius Caesar's head in the Roman Forum. And every time the Roman senators started marching toward Julius Caesar with a crown, he had pushed the crown away and said, "I don't want to be king." And the crowd of working people, proletarians, cheered for Julius Caesar because they didn't want a king. They wanted a leader. They wanted a populist. And they thought it was amazing. They loved Julius Caesar because he wasn't a king, because he was a populist. He was a champion. And the Roman senators had stabbed him to death. And even though they were all there, the crowds of angry working people and proletarians were there mourning Julius Caesar, cremating Julius Caesar. They were also mourning the end of the Roman Republic. Because soon after the death of Julius Caesar, a civil war would break out between Mark Antony and Octavian. And Octavian would be victorious, and Mark Antony would be defeated. And Octavian would declare himself to be the emperor, and that would be the end of the Roman Republic. Rome would be a monarchy from then on. That would be the end of elected government in the Roman Empire, a turning point in history that set the stage for the eventual downfall of the greatest and biggest empire that had ever existed at that point. It would take Europe 1,100 years to return to the population level it had during the time of the Roman Empire. It was a devastating blow when Rome fell. Even though Rome was a barbaric criminal empire, it was replaced with chaos. Rosa Luxemburg, the great Marxist revolutionary, the German socialist and anti-imperialist, she said at the time that World War I broke out, "This world war is a regression into barbarism. The triumph of imperialism leads to the annihilation of civilization." At first, this happens sporadically for the duration of modern war, but when the period of unlimited wars begins, it progresses towards its inevitable consequences: the triumph of imperialism and the collapse of all civilization, as in ancient Rome: depopulation, desolation, degeneration, a great cemetery. Rosa Luxemburg saw the West headed the same direction as the ugliness of World War I broke out. But I also wish that I could take you to an opera house in Beijing. What year was it? It was in 1964, October 1964. They were performing a patriotic opera in Beijing called The East is Red, about their revolution, about the Chinese Revolution, the victory of the people of China against Japan, and ultimately the establishment of the People's Republic. It was a great, spectacular performance. And then, and of course, everyone in the theater was very excited to be in this theater in Beijing, because not only were they seeing a great, spectacular, patriotic opera, but also the president of the country, Mao Zedong, was there. Chairman Mao was there in the theater. They were, the leader of the country was in the theater. And the opera ended. And people were getting ready to leave. The curtain had fallen. The opera was over. But then all of a sudden, the people were getting up to leave. And they decided, they saw they couldn't leave because the president, Chairman Mao, was walking onto the stage. And so everyone thought this must be important. Our leader, Chairman Mao, is walking onto the stage. This was October 16th, 1964. After the opera had ended, Chairman Mao walked onto the stage and he said, "I have one announcement. I just want everyone here to know. China has exploded its first atomic bomb." And the audience exploded into applause. Applause like they had never seen before, and tears poured down people's faces. China had exploded its first atomic bomb. They had conducted their first successful nuclear test. And no more was China going to be at the mercy of U.S. imperialism threatened with the atomic bomb. No longer would they have to depend on Khrushchev and the Soviet Union to protect them. But on October 16th, 1964, China exploded its first atomic bomb. It had nuclear weapons, and they could no longer be threatened by the annihilation of nuclear warfare. They could deter a nuclear attack. I wish I could take you to that moment in history. I wish you could be in that theater and feel that energy in that room. But while we're at it, I wish I could take you to Tampa, Florida, back in December, and you could be where me and John McCarthy were when Chairman O'Malley walked victorious out of the courtroom. Not one day, not one dime. The U.S. government raided the homes of the African People's Socialist Party leadership. They dragged them into federal court, not for any alleged crime, but simply for their free speech, for standing with Russia and Ukraine. And the FBI admitted to lying on the stand and admitted that they had said things to get their indictment they had no evidence of. And they were found not guilty on the charge of being foreign agents. And they were only found guilty on a minor conspiracy charge. And then, as a result of Tucker Carlson speaking out and Scott Ritter speaking out and so many people stepping up and standing with Chairman O'Malley, the courts were forced to not give them any jail time, to not give them any fine, to sentence them only to probation. And Chairman O'Malley and Penny Hess and Jesse Neville walked out of that courthouse victorious. The FBI was defeated. Rendered defeated, they tried to set a precedent and make it illegal to be an anti-imperialist in America, make it illegal to be anti-war in America, and they failed. They failed miserably, and public opinion had shifted in favor of the Uhuru movement, and Donald Trump had won the election
recently in November saying he would oppose the FBI, saying he wanted peace with Russia. And Tucker Carlson had spoken in their favor, and so many voices had come out. And I was there, and John McCarthy was there, and Scott Ritter was there, and we were all there to support the Uhuru movement. Jill Stein was there. Charles Barron, the New York State Assemblyman, former city councilman, was there. And we were all there in the courtroom cheering for our hero, Chairman O'Malley, who had beaten the FBI in court and had the courage as an 80-year-old man who risked dying in prison. He could have taken a plea deal, but he knew that our rights were hanging in balance. And so he fought the FBI in court, and with a team of lawyers, they beat the FBI in court. And it was a great, great moment. And I wish you could have been there in the courtroom, in the federal courthouse with me and John McCarthy and Scott Ritter and Charles Barron and so many other amazing people. It was a great, great moment that I will never forget in my life. It was really, really amazing. And I wish I could take you to all these great places, because the struggle's where it's at, brother. The struggle is where it's at. And the struggle is not being atomized on the internet. The struggle is where it's at. The struggle is alive. The struggle is in the streets. The struggle for justice. The struggle against Satan. The struggle to bring in God's kingdom on earth. The struggle to defeat globalism, imperialism. The struggle to empower working families. The struggle to oppose the danger of a new world war and the emerging low-wage police state. That struggle is where it's at. And if you are one of the people in this country that feels hopeless, that feels isolated, atomized, that feels dead, that feels like there's no point in life, you've got to join the struggle. You've got to join the struggle. And I don't mean reading books about the struggle, and I don't mean listening to podcasts about the struggle. I mean, you've got to join the struggle. There's nothing better than being an anti-imperialist. There is nothing better than being an organizer and an activist. There is nothing better than joining a movement. And that's what I'm here to tell you. We need a movement in this country more than ever. Only a movement can stop the danger of World War III, even though that's what the majority of the American people want. That's what they say in polls. That's what they vote for, but we don't get it. We voted for Trump to be a peace president, and he did the opposite, just like Barack Obama did, just like so many other presidents. And that's why we've got to build a movement. And we have got to build a movement because we need jobs and housing and education. We need new highways and bridges across this country. We need health care for our people. And the only way we're going to get it is to build a movement. We have got to build a movement. There is no alternative to building a movement. And building a movement is the only way you can really be human at this point. Look, I'm going to explain some things here that I think to those of us that watch these streams regularly might be common sense, might be duh, but it needs to be explained because people don't quite get all these things. The problem with the system we live under is not that some people are rich and some people are poor. I mean, that's not great. You know, I'd like everyone to be rich, but that's not the essential problem with it. And the problem with the system we live under is not that wealth is bad. It's not. No, we want more wealth. In fact, we want so much wealth that society's ills go away. The problem with the system that we live under is that this is the only system in history where wealth and abundance creates poverty. And this is the only system in history where people are homeless because there are too many houses. This is the only system in history where people are hungry because there is too much food. This is the only system in history where people freeze and are cold in the winter because there's too much heating gas. This is the only system in history where people lose their jobs and the economy starts to tank because the most vital commodity that we have, petroleum, oil, is available in abundance. Right? We have an economic system that is not rational. We have a system where the banks, factories, and industries operate in order to maximize profits for private owners. And because of that, we have a problem called the anarchy of production. The anarchy of production, in that the means of production, the banks and the factories and industries operate based on what the owner thinks is profitable for himself. The means of production function only as preliminary transformation into capital. Profits are in command. Profits are in command. And it is highly irrational, right? It's highly irrational. We need a rational economic system. What we need is a government of action that will fight for working families. We need a system where a great invention like self-driving cars would not lead to mass unemployment. We need a system where technological advancement and abundance of food and abundance of housing and abundance of all the things that we need to live leads to society overall becoming wealthier. What we need something the equivalent of when we harnessed electricity. Before humans harnessed electricity, there was lightning, and there was static electricity, but we didn't have lights in our houses, and we didn't, have commodities we could plug into the wall. There was energy everywhere, this energy called electricity, but we didn't know how to harness it. And you could even go back a little bit further. Before human beings discovered how to make fire, there was fire. There were wildfires. There was fires in the woods, forest fires. There was fire all the time, but we didn't know how to harness it. But then we figured out how to make fire on our own. And we could cook our food, and we could do all kinds of things once we figured out how to make fire. Just like once we figured out how to harness electricity, electricity went from being this wild, chaotic force to being something we could use to make a better life. We need to harness the energy called human labor power. We need to harness the energy called human creativity. Right now, human creativity and human labor power is subjected to the chaos of the market. It's subjected to the anarchy of production. But if we can overcome that and have a rationally organized economy and concentrate human labor power in a rational way so that abundance does not create poverty any longer. We don't have gluts of overproduction. We don't have mass unemployment. We don't have the government having to buy huge amounts of cheese to bury it to keep the price of dairy high enough. We can overcome the irrationality of a system where profits are in command. If we can make the coal miner's riddle something that no longer makes any sense in history. What's the coal miner's riddle? The coal miner's riddle is the little boy says to his father, "Father, why is it so cold?" And the father says, "Because I can't afford to buy any coal to heat the stove." The boy says, "Why can we not afford any coal to heat the stove?" He says, "Because I just lost my job at the coal mine. I got laid off." And he says, "Father, why did you lose your job at the coal mine?" He said, "Because there is too much coal." That is the problem with the capitalist mode of production. Not that it's unfair, not that, this or that, or it creates, oppression of women. And, okay, you can talk about all these things. You can talk about rich and poor being unfair. You can talk about social relations that are unequal. You can talk about racism, all these things. But the essential problem with capitalism is that it holds back human productivity. People become homeless because there are too many houses. People become hungry because there is too much food. The little boy is cold in the winter because his dad lost his job at the coal mine because there's too much coal. This is the problem with capitalism. Self-driving cars leading to riots in the streets, as Andrew Yang explained during the election. The huge cheese cave in Missouri, where billions of dollars of cheese are purchased every year by the American government and then buried in a cave in Springfield, Missouri, to keep the price of milk high enough that the farming sector doesn't go under. This system isn't rational. The solution is society taking control of the means of production, the banks, factories, and industries being rationally organized. We need a government of action that will fight for working families. We need a government of action that will fight for working families. We need a government of action that will fight for working families. We need a government of action that will fight for working families. And if we can take control of the means of production, and if we can rationally overcome the anarchy of production, the irrationality of the market, we can build a world with so much wealth and abundance that there won't be any inequality, because there's enough for everybody, enough to go around. Inequality is a thing of the past. We can build a world where there is no need for prisons, because why would anyone steal? Why would anyone hurt anyone else? There's so much to go around. All the antisocial behaviors, all of the unnecessary social hierarchies, all of the degradations of daily life could be eliminated if we reached a state of abundance. The problem with our world is poverty. The problem with our world is that it is not mature yet. We are still maturing and growing, and there will come a time where our people will awaken and we will understand that the anarchy of production and the chaos of the market must be overcome, and we will install a rationally organized economy, and growth will no longer be restricted. All right, that day will come, but in order for that day to come, people have to learn to think. People must learn to think. I love Wallace Wattles, the great American socialist. He wrote The Science of Being Great, The Science of Getting Rich. He wrote The Unknown Jesus Christ, Jesus the Man and His Works. He was a good friend of Eugene Debs, and he wrote a number of books about how to think in a certain way, and how to expect the best from the world, and how to love your fellow man, how to interact with people in a way that it is productive. I love Wallace Wattles. Go and read Wallace Wattles. You will understand a new way of thinking and a new way of being. It'll change the way you interact with other people. Go and read Wallace Wattles. One thing that we are at this point emphasizing more and more in CPI is that we seek to rescue people from living biologically. Now, what does that mean? What in the world does that mean? A plant, the weeds in your garden are alive. Ants are alive. Your dog, your cat, they're alive. A tree is alive, but they are only alive in the biological sense. Why? Because they don't make choices. They don't ask big questions. They simply respond to stimuli. If there's pain, they run away from it. If there's pleasure, they run toward it. And they don't exercise any agency. They never ask big questions. They never say, why am I here? And they, most importantly, they do not assert their will over the environment. Frederick Engels pointed out that every other species merely interacts with its environment. But man, humanity, is the only species that masters the environment, that forces the environment to serve him. It is that distinction that defines human beings. It is labor power, our ability to take the world around us and reinvent it, our ability to be creators, to be innovators. That is what defines human beings, is that we have agency. We can take action. We can change the world around us. No other species can do that. Ants have been making their ant farms the same way for thousands of years, and beavers have been making their beaver dams the same way for thousands of years, and bees have been making their beehives the same way. But we human beings, we have reinvented our relationship with nature over and over and over again, and our population has grown and grown and grown, and our living standards have risen, and our life expectancy has gotten longer. We have godlike creative ability. We're not God, but we have a piece of God within us. We have a soul, and we have an intelligence that no other species has. No, Charles Darwin was wrong. Man is not just another animal. The British Empire, they are wrong. The World Business Forum, they are wrong. We are not just another animal. We possess creativity, a spark of divinity that defines human existence. It is very beautiful to be human, and human beings are not a cancer on the planet. And our humanness, our ability to reinvent the world, our ability to innovate is a beautiful thing. But right now, our world is run by people who've gotten rich the way things are. People who got rich colonizing Africa. Why do you think we're, all the great people in our government, and great, I'm using that term ironically, but many of the top figures in our government, they studied in Britain as part of the Rhodes Scholar Program. What is the Rhodes Scholar Program? It's a British intelligence operation to recruit scholars, smart Americans, and bring them over to Oxford University and train them to think like British imperialists. And who is Rhodes, who it is named after? That would be none other than Cecil Rhodes, the genocidal murderer of African people, for whom Rhodesia was named. Now it's called Zimbabwe, but previously it was called Rhodesia. It was an apartheid state named after Cecil Rhodes, the great colonizer. And he set up the Rhodes Scholar Program. And Rachel Maddow, she was a smart little high school kid who was getting good grades. Oh boy. And they put her on a plane and they sent her over to Oxford to learn that human beings are just another animal, right? Human beings are just another animal. And to learn that, overpopulation is the big problem in the world. There's just too many people. These poor people are fucking like cats and dogs, and we got to stop them from doing that. There's just too many of them, right? To think like British Empire imperialists, to think like monopolists, right? The Rhodes Scholar Program, right? And what is the organization that sets U.S. foreign policy? It's called the Council on Foreign Relations. Where did it come from? Well, it used to be called the New York Council on Foreign Relations. Before that, it was called the Round Table Group, and it was run by a guy named Lord Milner. And where did the money for Lord Milner to run the Round Table Group come from? It came from Cecil Rhodes, the colonizer of Africa, who left money in his estate to set up a think tank or a society for the promotion of the ideals of the British Empire. The British Empire brought us Malthusianism, the theories of Robert Thomas Malthus, the idea that there are just too many people in the world. And the Rockefeller family, the oil banking family that emerged from Standard Oil, they were the main funders of the Neo-Malthusian Society that set up Planned Parenthood in the United States, originally called the Birth Control League. When the Great Depression was happening, the communists were going out and saying we need food and housing. They were building unemployment councils. But Margaret Sanger, an ex-socialist, a feminist from New York City, she traded socialism for sex. The Soviet Union wasn't the free love, free sex paradise she wanted. So she quit being a Marxist, she quit being a socialist, and she signed up with the Rockefellers to be a Malthusian. And she said the Great Depression was caused by overpopulation. And she signed up with Lothrop Stoddard, the white supremacist, the Nazi sympathizer. And together, they started promoting the concept of overpopulation Too many people in the world. This world is run by those who've gotten rich with colonialism, those who've gotten rich dominating the trade routes with a mighty military, the bankers of London, the bankers of Wall Street, the 6 families that dominated US politics, the elite, the ultra rich, the big monopolies, the people that are so rich, we don't even know how much money they have. And they run the world. And they have discovered that the only way they can stay at the top of the world is to stop human progress. Growth must stop. Human beings have got to stop producing. Human beings have got to stop inventing new technology. Human beings have got to stop innovating and creating. We need to lower the life expectancy. We need to lower the living conditions. We need to lower the population, and we need to degrow. That's what they want. They want forcible degrowth, and they're scheming at the government at the highest levels. They had their pandemic as a great degrowth episode. They're using climate alarmism and climate hysteria as a great degrowth mechanism. They degrow countries with their regime change wars. Libya used to have the highest life expectancy on the African continent until NATO bombs degrew it and destroyed it, destroyed the great man-made river, the world's largest irrigation system built by Gaddafi. Iraq used to be a prosperous country in the Middle East until they degrew it with lies about weapons of mass destruction. And they won't be satisfied until they degrow Russia, until they degrow China, until they degrow Venezuela and Iran, until they degrow Ohio and Texas and Pennsylvania and Idaho. They want to degrow you to save their satanic system. And we must say, no, we will not be degrown. You're not going to degrow us. We refuse to accept your biological existence. We're not rats in your maze. We're not cows. We're not cows and cattle in your farms. We're human beings, and we will innovate, and we will grow, and we will create, and we will expand, and we will fight back. And our enemy is not Iran. Our enemy is not Venezuela. Our enemy is not Russia or China. Our enemy is London. Our enemy is Wall Street. Our enemy is the international bankers. Our enemy is the Israel lobby. Our enemy is Wall Street. Our enemy are the forces that control the Pentagon, all the people that want to degrow us and reduce us to living biologically. That is who we should oppose. Our real enemy is here at home, and we will unite with the people of the world to break the power of this real enemy and build up and unleash human creativity to even higher levels. That is what we are striving to do, and that is what innovationism is all about. We will defeat imperialism, and we will celebrate human growth and creativity. We will unleash the productive forces. We will have a government of action that fights for working families. We are the anti-imperialists. We are the anti-globalists. We are the real communists. We are the real MAGA. We are the real Christians. We are the real Muslims. We are the real patriots for this country. We stand for what everyone wants: jobs, housing, freedom, an end to wars. I don't care what you are. You can call yourself a doorknob or a lampshade or a necktie. I don't care what you are. If you're on the side of humanity and against the rule of Wall Street, you are with us. You are on our side, and we are building a movement to fight for your humanity and your right to think and grow and be free. That is what we're doing, and that is what our movement is all about, and that's why you should get involved with the Center for Political Innovation, and that is why we will not back down no matter what they throw at us. Dare to struggle, dare to win. Dare to struggle, dare to win. We are armed with truth. We are armed with bravery. We are armed with a level of courage that our enemies cannot even understand. And that's what I'm here tonight to tell you about. I am here tonight to tell you that the world is not going to hell. The world is not going to hell. The world is going to the kingdom of God. And we are building the movement this world desperately needs right now. And there are so many people in this country who've never heard of us and don't know what we're about, but would sign up immediately if they could see the truth. And that is what we have to do. And that is what we have to do. And a year ago, we revolutionized our organization. We declared ourselves to be innovationists. We announced that outreach was going to be our focus. We started meeting every Wednesday night, having an outreach meeting in addition to our regular membership meeting on Saturday. We put thousands of door knocker flyers on doors. We printed thousands of copies of our book about the Houthis with a poster for our convention on the back. We sent delegations to different parts of the world. We have done amazing work. And we brought the message of peaceful reunification of Korea during the elections. And we handed out thousands of copies of our books during the Democrat National Convention. And we were at Trump's inauguration bringing the peace message. And we just keep going. We just keep going. Our member Jeff Young was chosen to represent the anti-NATO side at the debate that they had in Dayton, Ohio, outside of the NATO founding. Our members, our member in Minneapolis, Penny, she confronted Ilhan Omar, said no more money for rich men's wars, and disrupted Ilhan Omar's town hall meeting. We're doing it. We're doing it, folks. Our members out in LA, they went to the LA book fair. They went to the Bernie Sanders No Oligarchy tour. They met new people. They made amazing connections. Right now, at this very moment, they're doing outreach out in LA. They're at 2 different bookstores right now doing outreach and meeting new people and building this movement. This movement is exciting. This movement is where it's at. CPI, the Center for Political Innovation, the innovationist movement. We are the movement. We are the movement that you need to be part of. We have got the energy. We have got the will. We've got the passion. And I am excited and I am proud of this movement. And I am proud of everyone who is committed to what we're about, everyone who has refused to back down. We are doing great stuff. We are doing great stuff. We're doing great stuff. And, you know, I could tell you all kinds of different stuff. I could talk about the fall of Rome and where it came from. I could talk about the built-in problems of the capitalist economic system. And I could talk about imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism, globalism, Atlanticism. I mean, I could talk about the revolutions around the world where people have broken free. I could talk about the history of our own country and the labor movement and the peace movement and the many different struggles that have happened. I could talk about the weaknesses of different organizations, and I could talk about a lot of stuff. That's what I do on this channel. I talk, right? And I've written all kinds of books, but none of what I do is written for any other reason than to build a movement. All right. Somebody said to me, or it wasn't directly said to me, but it was said to me by proxy. About 5 or 6 people came to me because one of these very prominent people who actually has helped us, right? I don't hold a grudge against this person. I'm not even going to say who it is, but it's a rather prominent individual who has actually been very helpful to CPI at various times. But he was upset with me and he told people that Caleb needs to stop organizing. And that got back to me from one person and another person and another person. He meant for me to hear it. He didn't directly say it to me, but Caleb's got to stop organizing. And I heard that and I laughed and I said, I ain't stopping organizing, right? I don't even know what that means. How would I stop organizing? That would be like telling me to stop breathing. That would be like telling me to stop going to the bathroom, right? Telling me to stop eating. I do this. Every book that I write is a book intended to build an organization. Every live stream I give is a live stream intended to build an organization. Everything I do is motivated by the desire to build an anti-imperialist organization. So no, I can't stop organizing because all of what I do serves an organizing purpose. Right? I mean, I wouldn't talk about this stuff. I wouldn't write about this stuff if there was not an organizational intention behind it. That is the only reason I do anything that I do. The goal, the purpose is to organize. Marx said Philosophers have only analyzed the world. The point, however, is to change it. And that's the whole point of innovationism. You can change the world. You can innovate. You can take the world around you and reinvent it. And maybe you can do it as a doctor healing the sick. And maybe you can do it as a technology inventor by inventing a new technology. Maybe you can do it as a painter, as an artist, make the world more beautiful. But one way that you can definitely do it is by being an activist, by being an organizer, by taking up history's challenge and being a revolutionary. That is one way to break out of the trap of living biologically. The pod and the bugs they want us to eat and the owning nothing and being happy about it. That's what they've got for us. They want us living biologically. I'm here to tell you that you are a human being and you can innovate and create, and you don't have to go into their trap. You can find your own creative and innovative power. And I'm here to help you do that. And that's what our organization is all about. That's what the Center for Political Innovation is all about. You can visit our website, cpiusa.org. You can read What is Innovationism? There's a whole book about our ideology there. We are the movement that America needs. We're the movement that the world needs. But around the world, they've already got it. You know, we just published this great book, right? Penny, our member, wrote a great book about a great innovationist. His name is Ibrahim Traore, and he's leading the Burkina Faso African nation, part of the Union of Sahel States, to innovate. Farming boom, technology expansion. They're doing amazing stuff. It's really amazing. You can read all about it. We're going to have hundreds of books like this at our upcoming event in Chicago. You'll read all about it. All right? He's an innovationist. He's part of the new economy that's rising in the world. He's building. And we are honored to be able to promote him and celebrate his brilliance at our event here in Chicago coming up. I'm not in Chicago right now. I'm in New York, but I'll be headed there soon. Yeah, this movement is where it's at, folks. We are the movement that is needed. And, you know, I can lay it all out for you. You know, and my new rule a couple of years ago, I decided no more chasing after people, right? Because, you know, if I have to beg you to come to stuff, if I have to convince you to do something, you're going to resent me down the road. This is not for everybody. And I don't pretend that this is for everybody. I think it's good for everybody. I think it's what everybody needs deep down. But if you aren't ready for it, and if you're not ready to embrace it yourself, I mean, I can tell you what I know to be true. I can try to inspire you with passion, but you have to make a choice. You have to make a choice. You know, there's a couple songs that come to mind, right? There's one song, it's a labor movement song. You gotta go down and join the union. You've got to join it for yourself. Ain't nobody here can join it for you. You got to go down and join the union for yourself, right? I mean, that's probably an awful version of that song, but it's true, right? No one can make you join the union. You got to go join the union for yourself. And then the Internationale, right? The theme song of international communism, right? The first verse, arise, ye prisoners of starvation. Arise, ye wretched of the earth, for justice thunders condemnation. A better world's in birth. No more traditions chains shall bind us. Arise, ye slaves, no more in thrall. The earth shall rise on new foundations. We have been naught, we shall be all. 'Tis the final conflict. Let all stand in their place. The international working class shall be the human race. 'Tis the final conflict. Let all stand in their place. The international working class shall be the human race. That's the first verse, right? But it's the second verse that I'm talking about. The second verse of the Internationale. and the American version of the Internationale, mind you. There's a million versions of the Internationale. Don't even get me started about the Billy Bragg version. It makes me want to puke. I never want to hear Billy Bragg's version. Stand up, all victims of oppression. I just want to puke every time I hear that. You know, I would rather you don't sing the Internationale than sing the goddamn Billy Bragg version. That's a crime against music, a crime against lyrics. But anyway, the American standard lyrics to the song. I just sang you the first verse. Second verse goes like this. We want no condescending saviors to rule us from the judgment hall. We workers ask not for their favors. We must consult for all to make the thieves give up their booty, to free the spirit from the cell. Each must themselves decide their duty. They must decide and do it well. And there's so much in that verse, right? We want no condescending saviors to rule us from the judgment hall, right? We can't put our faith in Trump. We can't put our faith in Biden. We can't put our faith in some figure from the political establishment to save us. No, we don't. You know, we workers ask not for their favors. We must consult for all, meaning we must build a mass movement that empowers the people, not try to find some savior from within the system. To make the thieves give up their booty, right? That's to break the power of the big monopolies. And then the next line, to free the spirit from the cell. That's a really important line in the Internationale. Free the spirit from the cell. What does that mean? To free the spirit from the cell. That means that human creativity is restrained by the irrationality of the market. Human growth and human ability is restrained by the stupidity of the profit system. We seek to free the spirit from the cell, to break the jail doors open and unleash human creative power. Free the spirit from the cell. It's amazing. Free the spirit from the cell, right? To liberate the beauty and creativity within the human soul, to free the spirit from the cell. But then what's the next line? We must ourselves decide our duty. We must decide and do it well. Meaning, you got to decide it for yourself. I can't make you do it. I can't make you. I can give nice speeches on here and try to get you fired up, and I can help make it happen. But at the end of the day, you've got to make a decision. You have got to make a decision. I am overjoyed that Patrick from Maine is coming. You know, shout out to you, Patrick. I am so excited to shake your hand and meet you in person. When I got the message that Patrick from Maine, who's a really loyal member of CPI, he's on every Zoom call. I found out he's never actually been to an in real life event. You know, he's up in Maine, but he's on every Zoom call. He's watching right now. I am sure, I can guarantee you, Patrick is watching. When I found out that Patrick from Maine was coming to Chicago, I was overjoyed, right? And, there's others, right? I mean, we are going to do something really, really exciting here in July. This is going to be July of 2025 is going to be a really, really great month because what we're doing with CPI is really amazing. Every day Penny impresses me, right? I must say. I mean, she wrote a book about Ibrahim Traore. She reads the news from Burkina Faso in French and listens to the news in French every day. And she's always doing outreach and she's always connecting with people. I don't know how she has so much time, but she does it. And she does an amazing job. And I mean, the Chicago folks that are always doing outreach. I mean, Gabby, she's a mom, she's raising her son, and she's got a lot going on, but she's always out there whenever we're doing stuff. She's always putting those door knockers on doors. She's visiting churches and mosques and religious communities, and she's doing amazing stuff. Noah, packed up. He's from Boston, but he got in his car and he packed up and he went all the way down to Chicago, and he's been there in the hot sun putting door hanger flyers on doors and telling people all about our convention that's coming up and making important connections and meeting with people. I mean, we're doing amazing, amazing things. We're doing amazing things. And, John McCarthy, who, really oversaw our relationship with Uhuru. And I mean, Tim, who, he's in Missouri and he's always doing outreach. He goes around and meets a lot of different people, and he's always telling them about our organization. He's coordinating different things for the upcoming weekend. And Briggy, who was with us on the day we launched Peace MAGA in New York. And Briggy is so amazing in so many ways. And oh man, I'm going to start naming people, and I'm going to forget somebody who's really, really important and awesome. We got Jeff Young in Kentucky with the Kentucky Party, who's running for office and challenging, the imperialists. And oh man, Zach, right? Zach is really active up in Minneapolis, doing great stuff and traveling around. And we love Zach. And Dan and Ishmael and Stephen in Los Angeles. I could just start naming people, right? And there's other people, right? People who probably don't want to be named, who have sent donations to help us do what we're going to do, right? It costs a lot of money to do what we're doing, but there's people who've made it happen. There's people in different states. There's people in North Carolina. There's people in the South, and there's people in Pennsylvania. And wow. Right? CPI is not a one-man band, all right? And I worry about that. I'm very visible and I'm very flamboyant and I'm out there doing stuff, but we are far from a one-man band, right? If we were a one-man band, we would have shut down by now. There's so many people, right? I don't want to say the names. A lot of times people, because of their jobs and their life circumstances, they can't be public, but there's a certain person who convenes meetings, right, to help plan out the organization, who's designed a lot of the website and done a lot of the technical work and flown me places to have strategy meetings with him. Shout out to you. Not going to say your name. And oh man, wow. Who can my goodness. It's just so many great people in this organization. And that's one reason I think you belong in CPI, because you'll meet these people, these tireless, heroic people. Carl the Trinket Man, right? My goodness, he's every time we have an event, he arranges for us to have all kinds of great trinkets and gear, and he's always got an optimistic attitude and a smile, and he's always got a sense of humor. Carl the Trinket Man, Carl is amazing. Carl is amazing, and we got an amazing musician in the group, right? Brian is our amazing musician. He's always playing great songs and doing great stuff. We love Brian. Brian is great, and oh man, there's just so many good people, and there's so many people I'm looking forward to meeting for the first time. Deha from Seattle, and there's Gavin. We all love Gavin. Gavin is like a beloved character. Gavin, I've been with Gavin since years ago. For at least 15 years, I've known Gavin, right? He goes back to the Libyan war and Gaddafi. He's going to give a great speech about that at our upcoming gathering. And oh man, we just got so many great people in CPI. Ellie, right? Shout out to Ellie, right? Ellie has done a lot, and she's making connections, and she's always got her pulse on things that are happening in the Latin American community. She's got a whole history of Latin America solidarity that's really important, and she's very dedicated to being patient with people in Chicago and making sure that things get done. And oh, we love Ellie. And oh man, we just keep thinking about people. Phil, our member in Brooklyn, he's having some health problems, and I love how our community, we all love Phil, right? We all love Phil, and the fact that Phil is getting some medical attention now. We've all been praying for Phil and thinking about Phil, and and how much we love Phil as a member of our community. Came to our retreat in Vermont and helped us with the Peace MAGA outreach, passed out books in Chicago. And man, we just keep thinking of all the great people in this group, who do so much. And it's really amazing that CPI exists. It really is. And I am so proud of what we have built. And I am so in awe of the dedication and the heroism of our people. We have great people, and I'm really looking forward to seeing different people that are coming to town. And wow. So, I will answer any questions people have got tonight. Any questions got a question, you can send it as a Rumble rant, or you can cash at me, Caleb Maupin 22. And that's really all I got. This will be the last live stream before the big day. I have got a whole bunch of compilation videos. They're like 5 hours long, 7 hours long, 8 hours long, so there'll be a lot of activity on this channel of compilations of our old stuff from over the years that you'll get to watch. But yeah, you got any questions? I'll answer them. Let's do the roll call. Names and locations. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. Names and locations. And then I'll answer any questions. And then I'm out. So this is your last chance at me before Chicago. So make it a good one. Make it a good one. Checkpoint Charlie in Kew Gardens, New York. Hey, Checkpoint Charlie. Zeno from the Netherlands. Anthony in Detroit. JT24 in Mississippi, JDL 37 in Missouri, Jacob in Wisconsin, Deha in Seattle, Phil in Staten Island is in the house. Very good. Rice from Adelaide, Australia, Alyssa in Virginia, Ryan in Kansas City. I'm looking forward to meeting you this weekend. I met you at Rage Against the War Machine. I'm looking forward to meeting you again. Joe in Philly, but live in Durham, North Carolina. Cool. Jenny in Cincinnati. Z in Miami. Good luck in Chicago. Alex in Brazil. Denver. I'm so excited. I'm really looking forward to seeing you. Really looking forward to seeing you. You're a good guy. You were in Minneapolis. I gave you my Bible. I bought a new King James Bible because I gave my Bible to Denver. So that was a bond we both have over the Christian aspects of anti-imperialism in our movement. So I shout out to Denver. He's a great guy, a hardworking guy, a father. Hempcar. I salute you, Hempcar. You're a beloved member of our community. We love you, Hempcar. And thank you for everything you do. Jacob in Wisconsin. Bill Kane in Gateshead, England. Welcome, Bill Kane. William Kane. Sir William Kane, good sir. Sir William Kane. I'm sorry, I shouldn't make fun of your accent. I assume you talk that way because you're in England. So, Mr. Kane, I appreciate you. So there we go. Names. Anybody else? Names and locations. Anybody else? Names and locations. Anybody else? Names and locations. The Pale Horse says, well said, Caleb. Well, thank you. Thank you. But you should say well done, not well said, because, every year at the end of the year, I give a report and I just go over everything that CPI has done. Right? Again, this isn't an internet club. This isn't a form of passive internet entertainment. This is building a movement. We exist to carry out operations for anti-imperialism, and we are doing it. We're doing it. And I'm already thinking about what we're doing after the convention. I'm thinking about how there's going to be a big Palestine convention in Detroit at the end of August. I'm thinking we can't not have thousands of these given out there, right? And I mean, I can't even think about the logistics of who's going to go and how we're going to get the books there and all of that. But no, I mean, it's just not optional, right? If 5,000 people are going to gather in Detroit to talk about the Palestine struggle, led by, well, I'm not even going to talk about who they're led by. Well, we got no choice. We got to make sure that we're there giving them the Houthi book and showing them what our movement is all about, right? They got to get CPI's message. Millions of people in the Palestine movement they're not woke people. They're Palestinian. They're Arabs. They're Muslims. And they know that our message is serious and wokeism is not. And there's just no option. We've got to get to Detroit and we got to have at least 2 or 3 of our people. And we got to have thousands of copies of this book that just get handed out. And that every person who goes to that conference, not every person, well, maybe every person, I don't know. We got to get Houthi books out at that August convention, right? And you got a little time, right? July, we'll sum up. Early August, we'll figure out where we're at. But that's an operation we're going to have to carry out. We are going to have to make sure that these books are distributed at that convention, and that Brian Conman Becker isn't the only one. His operation of weakening while wokening the Palestinian movement, weakening by wokening the Palestinian movement, isn't unchallenged, and that there's some real American pro-Houthi populism at the Palestine conference. We got to do it, right? We got to do it. We got to be there, right? And I mean, there's other things we got to do, right? We got to popularize Ibrahim Traore. You got to let people know who he is. And we got books now to distribute. We got a book about Ibrahim Traore, and we got to raise awareness about this great African leader. I was at church the other day. And there's a guy there who's he's from Mali, right? And he loves Ibrahim Traore. Not for any religious reason, but just because his family is from there. And Russia has been really good to Mali, and Ibrahim Traore is great. I'm just like, wow, I never guessed that I'd be talking to a pastor in a very conservative church. And here he is. He's telling me, oh, yeah, well, my family, we love Ibrahim Traore, and Russia's been so good to Mali. I'm thinking, wow, you find friends in the most odd places, right? It's really wild. It's really, really wild. Real American populism. Damn right. Real American populism. Yeah. Wow. All right. So is there a song I can put on while I wait for you all to send some questions? Is there a song I can put on? Let me find a song. Let me see if I can find a song. The Ballad of Ho Chi Minh. Here we go.
Far away across the ocean, far beyond the sea's eastern rim, lives a man who is father of the Indo-Chinese people, and his name it is Ho Chi Minh. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. From Viet Bac to the Saigon Delta, from the mountains and the plains below, young and old workers, peasants and the toiling tenant farmers fight for freedom with Uncle Ho. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Now Ho Chi Minh was a deep-sea sailor. He served his time out on the 7 seas. Work and hardship were part of his early education. Exploitation is ABC. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Now Ho Chi Minh came back from sailing, and he looked on his native land, saw the want and the hunger of the Indo-Chinese people, foreign soldiers on every hand. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Now Ho Chi Minh went to the mountains, and he trained a determined band. Heroes all who had sworn to free the Indo-Chinese people, drive invaders from the land. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. 14 men became 100,000, and Ho Chi Minh forged and tempered the army of the Indo-Chinese people, freedom's army of Viet Minh. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Every soldier is a farmer. Comes the evening and he grabs his hoe. Comes the morning he swings his rifle on his shoulder. 'Tis the army of Uncle Ho. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. From the jungles and the mountains, from the rice lands to the plain of reeds, March the men and the women of the Indo-Chinese army, planting freedom with victory seeds. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh, ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. From Viet Bac to the Saigon Delta, march the armies of Viet Minh, and the wind stirs the banners of the Indo-Chinese people, peace and freedom, and Ho Chi Minh. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. Ho!
All right. Not the best version of that song I've ever heard, but it's still a great song. But yeah, so yeah, send any questions you got. This is a fun clip from the movie Lincoln in Illinois, which is a late 1930s kind of popular front movie about the political origin story of Abraham Lincoln, the leader of the Second American Revolution. And it shows how radical he was. Abraham Lincoln was a populist. So here we go.
Now, you heard the judge speak about our own labor condition. As an American, I cannot be proud that such conditions exist. But as an American, I can ask, would any of the striking workers in the North elect to change places with the slaves in the South? Will they not rather say the remedy is in our hands, and still as an American, I can say, thank God we live under a system by which men have the right to strike. I am not preaching rebellion. I don't have to. This country with its institutions belongs to the people who inhabit it. Whenever they shall grow weary of the existing government, they can exercise their constitutional right of amending it, or their revolutionary right to dismember or overthrow it. If the Founding Fathers gave us anything, they gave us that. The purpose of the Dred Scott decision is to make property and nothing but property of the Negro in all states of the Union. It is the old issue of human rights versus property rights. It is the eternal struggle between two principles. The one, the common right of humanity. The other, the divine right of kings. It is the same spirit which says, you toil and work and earn bread and I'll eat it. As a nation, we began by declaring all men are created equal. There was no mention of any exception to that rule in the Declaration of Independence. But we now practically read it, all men are created equal except Negroes. If we are to accept this doctrine of race or class discrimination, what is to stop us in future from decreeing all men are created equal except Negroes, foreigners, Catholics, Jews, or just poor people? That is the conclusion towards which the advocates of slavery are driving us. Let each state mind its own business, says Judge Douglas. Why stir up trouble? This is the complacent policy of indifference to evil. And that policy I cannot but hate. I hate it because of the monstrous injustice of slavery itself. I hate it because it deprives our republic of its just influence in the world. enables the enemies of free institutions everywhere to taunt us as hypocrites, causes the real friends of freedom to doubt our sincerity, and especially because it forces so many good men among ourselves into an open war with the very fundamentals of civil liberty, denying the good faith of the Declaration of Independence and insisting that there is no right principle of action but self-interest. In his final words tonight, the judge said that we can be the terror of the world. I don't think we want to be that. I think we would prefer to be the encouragement of the world, the proof that at last man is worthy to be free. But we shall provide no such encouragement unless we can establish our ability as a nation to live and grow. And we shall surely do neither if these states fail to remain united. There can be no distinction in the definition of liberty as between one section and another, one class and another, one race and another. A house divided against itself cannot stand. This government cannot endure permanently, half slave and half free.
Yep, that was Abraham Lincoln. And no, Abraham Lincoln was not a slave owner. Abraham Lincoln was the president in the war to abolish slavery. Abraham Lincoln is the guy who actually got rid of slavery. Abraham Lincoln was a genius, and he was the leader of the Second American Revolution. And he and Karl Marx were pen pals. He sent a beautiful message when Karl Marx and his associates had an anti-slavery rally in London. He sent a message as president of the United States to that anti-slavery rally. It's pretty amazing what Abraham Lincoln did. And, there's a lot written about Abraham Lincoln. Wallace Wattles writes about Abraham Lincoln, so does Dale Carnegie, the father of modern self-help. He wrote a biography of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was a rare figure. You're right. He was born in a log cabin in Kentucky, and he became a lawyer. And as a lawyer, he was eventually elected to office, and he actually gave speeches against capitalism. He said the capitalists generally fleece the people. He said labor is always superior to capital. He fought for working people and small business owners and others. And he came into office as the first president from a radical new political party called the Republican Party that was inspired by the uprisings across Europe, the revolutions of 1848. Then he became president. And in response, even though he said he wouldn't abolish slavery, he just wanted to restrict it. Right. He said that, if the South had slavery, he wouldn't meddle with it, but he didn't believe in slavery. So no more slave states, and definitely no more fugitive slave law. He wasn't going to cooperate with this, they had this law called the Fugitive Slave Law that said that if a slave was a slave in the South and they got free and they went to another state, that state had to arrest them and bring them back. And Abraham Lincoln said, we're not going to play ball with slavery. And in response to that, the Southern slave owners took up arms and declared independence. They seceded from the United States, and Abraham Lincoln was forced to mobilize an army to defeat the slaveholders, and it was the Second American Revolution. And they abolished slavery, and they defeated slavery. And he made Harriet Tubman the first woman to ever lead U.S. soldiers into battle. And in South Carolina, Harriet Tubman led a militia of Black people through South Carolina, and they went to slave plantations and they freed the slaves and they broke the chains, right? And Abraham Lincoln, he may have done so reluctantly. There was a division in the ruling class. He was a Bonapartist, but he was forced to preside over the Second American Revolution, the overthrow of slavery. And even though he tried to say, well, it's not about slavery, in order to win the war, he had to abolish slavery. And he became friends with Frederick Douglass, the great abolitionist, and he made Harriet Tubman general in the U.S. military. And he had to send letters and have a relationship with Karl Marx. And he had August Willich, a communist born in Germany, become his general in the Union Army. And Abraham Lincoln was forced to become a revolutionary. And the U.S. Civil War was really the Second American Revolution. And I'm disappointed because there's somebody in the chat who, like, they don't know who he was, right? And they said, wasn't he a slave owner? No, he's the guy who abolished slavery. But that's the left, right? The left has become so pessimistic, right? If you hear about any great American, you're just supposed to go, oh, they're a big fat racist. And it's like, yeah, Abraham Lincoln was racist. There's no question about it. But his views changed over the course of the war. But it's like, there's no interest there's vibrant history, right? And so much of woke history is just America is just one big story of ugly racism, and we should all just be bitter and pessimistic. No, America's a history of struggle. A history of struggle. Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Nat Turner, John Brown. America is a history of struggle. You got to learn about the struggle against injustice. You can't just, that attitude of it's just, some old dead white guy. America's just an evil racist country. It's like, that's a disempowering attitude. It sounds radical because you're condemning racism. It sounds radical because Lincoln is, his face is on the $5 bill, so he must be part of the establishment. But Lincoln, reluctantly, as a Bonapartist, presided over the Second American Revolution. Right. And that, again, there is this, if you see American history that way, you're going to be pessimistic, right? You're not going to understand it. Right. So, there's a history of conflict, and in American history, there are heroic people who did great things. And Lincoln ended up being the most important ally those people ever had in the White House. So. Yeah, I wish that, I wish that there was not, this kind of generalized attitude. Somebody was critiquing me, said, when they got rid of slavery in the USA, it wasn't a big struggle. They just said, okay, we'll let you be free, but we won't give you any rights. That's not the truth. So many people died in the struggle to abolish slavery. And Reconstruction, the period immediately following the defeat of the slaveholders, there was redistribution of land, there was public education being given out, and that was Reconstruction was overturned, right? And the Klan and other forces were kind of handed back the South. It was the compromise, but the struggle to defeat slavery was one of the most amazing moments in American history. And woke people want to take that away. Look, we got a woke person in the chat who's saying, oh, wasn't Lincoln a slaveholder? I mean, it's like, that's why wokeism is toxic. No, wokeism is not, it's not just people who believe what we believe a little bit differently. Wokeism is toxic. Wokeism doesn't want you to know about John Brown and Harriet Tubman. Wokeism doesn't want you to know about, August Willich and Joseph Wedemeyer. It wants to just, it's a bunch of old white men, be pessimistic, right? That's the New York Times. Their 1600 project or whatever it's called, 1609 or 1644 project or whatever the hell it's called, right? I mean, that's what they want to do, is they want to rob you of the struggle, right? Don't read that kind of thing. Go and read William Z. Foster. Go and read Outline Political History of the Americans by William Z. Foster. Go and read W.E.B. Du Bois, his book Black Reconstruction, his biography of John Brown. Don't read this pessimistic stuff that's just designed to make you hate your own country. Learn the actual history of struggle, right? There's a whole history of struggle, and that's what they're trying, the 1619 Project, that's what they're trying to erase. They want to make it sound like there was never any struggle against slavery. America is just one big, giant, racist piece of shit from the beginning. That's not the truth. There's ugly, evil things in the history of this country, but there's always been resistance. There's always been resistance, and we have just as much right to claim this country for the resistance as they do. I am not going to hand over my country to Donald Trump. I'm not going to hand over my country to Joe Biden. John Brown and Harriet Tubman and Gus Hall and Eugene Debs and Elizabeth Gurley Flynn, all of us are just as much part of American history. And the woke people want to hand American history over because they're not preaching struggle. They're preaching pessimism, resentment. They just want to tear down statues. They want to cancel people on the internet. Wokeism is toxic because it doesn't empower. You learn about John Brown, this in our Houthi book. To talk about the Houthis, I have this picture of John Brown. This is the great abolitionist who took up arms against slavery. He seized Harper's Ferry in Virginia, and he and a group of white and black people, they seized control of the armory, and they tried to build an anti-slavery revolutionary movement. And he was the first person in American history to get the death penalty. John Brown, right? That's an amazing person. And people marched into battle during the U.S. Civil War singing about John Brown's body, right? Singing John Brown's body, honoring that great martyr, that great abolitionist revolutionary, John Brown. And they want to rob that from us. They want to say, oh, it's just a bunch of old dead white guys. Oh, America's just a giant piece of shit. No, learn John Brown's history, right? Learn about who John Brown was. And that will empower you. They don't want you to be empowered. They want you to be pessimistic and hopeless and living biologically. They want you to be pessimistic. And that's the problem with wokeism, right? The fact that our whole history and the whole history of struggle against slavery has been erased, right? And, I show a picture of Abraham Lincoln and someone's like, oh, he must have been a racist, dead white guy slave owner. It's like, no, he was a revolutionary and he wasn't as good as others, but he was forced to align himself and he presided over the most radical thing that's happened ever in American history. The overturning of the slave system, right? I mean, it's just, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. I'm going to put on John Brown's body. If anyone has any more questions, send them in. But this is John Brown's body. This is the song after John Brown became the first person in American history to get the death penalty for treason, right? First person ever executed for treason. The soldiers in the American Civil War went into battle, marched into battle singing a song in his honor. John Brown's body. And they had to compose the Battle Hymn of the Republic because the tune, they wanted to change the words. So they weren't about an abolitionist revolutionary. And the Battle Hymn of the Republic was taken from the tune to John Brown's body. Here's John Brown's body.
John Brown's body lies a mouldering in the grave. John Brown's body lies a mouldering in the grave. John Brown's body lies a mouldering in the grave, but his soul goes marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His soul goes marching on. The stars above in heaven now are looking kindly down. The stars above in heaven now are looking kindly down. The stars above in heaven now are looking kindly down on the grave of old John Brown. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His soul goes marching on. He captured Harper's Ferry with his 19 men so true. He frightened old Virginia till she trembled through and through. They hanged him for a traitor, they themselves the traitor crew. But his soul goes marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His soul goes marching on. America's working folk are all remembering of the spot. America's working folk are all remembering of the spot. America's working folk are all remembering of the spot. It's the grave of old John Brown. Glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His soul goes marching on. When the Union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But the Union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the Union makes us strong. It is we who plowed the prairies, built the cities where they trade, dug the mines and built the workshops, endless miles of railroad laid. Now we stand outcast and starving midst the wonders we have made, but the Union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the Union makes us strong. They have taken untold millions that they've never toiled to earn, but without our brain and muscle, not a single wheel can turn. We can break their haughty power, gain our freedom when we learn that the Union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the Union makes us strong. In our hands is placed the power greater than the hoarded gold, greater than the might of armies magnified 1,000-fold. We can bring to birth a new world from the ashes of the old, for the Union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the Union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the Union makes us strong. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. For the Union makes us strong.
There we go. All righty. So I don't see any more questions having come in. So, you know, I mean, I can play some more songs here. Questions can be sent via Rumble Rants, or you can cash at me at CalebMoppin22. You know, it's always a good thing to do to send some questions. I'll keep playing songs here for a little bit, but I can't be on here all night. You know, we're getting close to the 2-hour mark, and I got church in the morning, and I got a lot of things to take care of before I get on the plane on Monday. But, you know, yeah, if any questions come in, that would be great. Let me see if I can find another song to play, right? What other songs might we want to play on here? Isn't that one of the, I think it's the chef on the Muppets. He talks like that. It's supposed to be like Swedish. I mean, I don't think Swedish people sound that way. Maybe they do. I don't know. You know, but yeah, you know, it's, I think, what is it? It's one of the Muppets. It's like the chef, and he says, but anyway, I guess I like Aaron Copland, the communist composer, and he did a set of American songs where he took American folk songs and put them to an orchestra. So this is a fun one. It's a children's song called Bought Me a Cat. So here we go.
I bought me a cat, my cat knows me. I fed my cat under yonder tree. My cat says fiddle I feed. I bought me a duck, my duck pleased me. I fed my duck under yonder tree. My duck says, quack, quack. My cat says, fiddle I feed. I bought me a goose, my goose pleased me. I fed my goose under yonder tree. My goose says, quaw, quaw. My duck says, quack, quack. My cat says, fiddle I feed. I bought me a hen, my hen pleased me. I fed my hen under yonder tree. My hen says, shimmy, 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 shimmy. My goose says, quaw, quaw. My duck says, quack, quack. My cat says, fiddle I feed. I bought me a pig, my pig pleased me. I fed my pig under yonder tree. My pig says, griffy, griffy. My hen says, shimmy, 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 shimmy. My goose says, quaw, quaw. My duck says, quack, quack. My cat says, fiddle I feed. I bought me a cow, my cow pleased me. I fed my cow in the yonder tree. My cow says, bow, bow. My pig says, griffy, griffy. My hen says, shimmy, shake, shimmy, shake. My goose says, quaw, quaw. My duck says, quack, quack. My cat says, fiddle I feed. I bought me a horse, my horse pleased me. I fed my horse in the yonder tree. My horse says, neigh, neigh. My cow says, bow, bow. My pig says, griffy, griffy. My hen says, shimmy, shake, shimmy, shake. My goose says, quaw, quaw. My duck says, quack, quack. My cat says, fiddle I feed. I bought me a wife, my wife pleased me. I fed my wife under yonder tree. My wife says, Lucas, Lucas! My horse says, nay, nay. My cat says, bow, bow. My pig says, griffy, griffy. My hen says, shimmy, shimmy. My goose says, bow, bow. My duck says, quack, quack. My cat says, fiddle I feed.
No, it's kind of brilliant. Aaron Copland was an American Communist Party fellow traveler. I think he wasn't allowed to be a member because he was gay. They didn't allow gay people to join back then. But he was blacklisted. And during McCarthyism, at a time he was being persecuted, he wrote a piece called American Songs, where he found songs from American, folk music, American culture that had like progressive values in them. And that, it's really beautiful. I went to a performance of American Songs with my wife that was put on by the Institute for Classical Culture 5 or 6 years ago. I was very moved by it. So let's listen to some more pieces from the Aaron Copland American Songs.
Ching-a-ring-a-ring, ching-ching, oh, ding-a-ding, kumalaki, ching-a-ring-a-ring, ching-ching, oh, ding, kumalaki. Brothers, gather round, listen to this story about the promised land and the promised glory. You don't need to fear if you have no money, you don't need no care to buy your milk and honey. There you ride in style, coach with 4 white horses. There the evening meal has 1, 2, 3, 4 courses. Ching-a-ring-a-ring, ching, ching-a-ring, ching, oh, ding-a-ding, kumalaki. Ching-a-ring-a-ring, ching, oh, ding, kumalaki. Lights me on the pan, silver harp and fiddle, waltz and jig and prance, cast them in the middle. When the morning comes, all the kindness tender, stand in the sun and hear that holy thunder. Brothers, hear me out, the promised land's a coming, dance and sing and shout, I hear them harps are
All right. Yeah, that's another one of Aaron Copland's American Songs. This song, it's very interesting. This was kind of, this was the song of a Christian socialist group in the 1800s called the Shaker movement. They were a religious movement in New England called the Shakers, and they followed a female prophet. And Aaron Copland found their hymn their main hymn, Simple Gifts, or it was known as Shaker Song. And he made it popular by using it in his compositions during World War II and afterwards. So this is a performance of the anthem of the Shaker movement, which was called Simple Gifts. And they were socialists. They held all things in common. They also didn't believe in reproduction. So there weren't many of them left. There's still a couple apparently, but Shakerism, it was a religion in America that was socialistic, but here we go. Okay, so I see one Rumble rant has come in, which is a good question. But before I answer your question, right, I'm going to put on a version where you can actually hear the soloist, right? In that version, you could barely hear the singer. You just heard the orchestra. So I'm going to put on a version with someone just singing it, because it's a good piece. It's a great classic American song of a new religious movement that was socialistic in the 1800s, the Shaker movement. And they are definitely not Amish, and they were definitely not Quakers. They were their own thing, the Shakers. But anyhow, we'll put on this, and then I'll answer the other question. But any more questions, Caleb Moppin 22 on Cash App or Rumble Rants, happy to answer your questions. Here we go. Here's another version of the song where you can hear the singer.
To be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down where you ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight.
So there you go. That is simple gifts. All right. So the Rumble rant question, and I guess one last call. This is the last call. If you got any questions, Rumble rants or Cash App me for questions. Last call, final call. Not the newspaper of the Nation of Islam, but me telling you it is the final call for a question. Yeah, last call. So if you got a question, send it now or forever hold your peace. But anyway, so Atta Third says, how did anarchism get such an appeal for these young white suburban kids? That's an interesting question. Because, see, it brings back memories, right? When I was in high school, I got very interested in communism. And I discovered that anarchism was a variant, right? It's one of these like leftist ideologies. Marx was an associate, of a lot of people who broke with him, right? Mikhail Bakunin and others that were anarchists. Proudhon was somebody Marx wrote a book against. And so I started reading about anarchism, and I discovered at the time I was in high school, there was a band called Anti-Flag that were anarchists. And there were people at my school who didn't know anything about politics. They loved Anti-Flag because they loved, they loved punk rock or whatever. And that, during Occupy Wall Street, like I would say like about a very large percentage of the people at Occupy Wall Street that I met would tell you they were anarchists. And you'd say, oh, you're an anarchist. You like Proudhon? You like Mikhail Bakunin? Are you like, what kind of anarchist are you? I have my own ideas, man. I'm an anarchist because no one can tell me what to do, man. I've never heard of any of those people because I think for myself, man. I'm an anarchist. The overwhelming majority of people who call themselves anarchists have no coherent political philosophy whatsoever. It's just, I don't know. It's they like punk rock bands. They like the Sex Pistols. I don't know. It's part of their, I'm a kid who goes to punk rock shows. Exactly. That was the overwhelming majority. Now, in addition to that, there's a layer of people and this is more of a Gen X thing, right? This is a little bit before my time, but in the 80s and 90s, you had all the communist groups, Progressive Labor Party, Workers' World Party, Communist Party USA, etc. And there were a lot of younger people that weren't from the boomer generation who went to peace marches, went to labor marches, protested around leftist causes, but did not join one of those groups. And that was their reason. They said, well, I'm an anarchist. And it really, some of them admired Che Guevara, some of them admired Mao even. It was just their way of saying, I'm not going to join one of the groups. And in a lot of cases, it was that they were put off by the kind of culty and unhealthy behavior that a lot of those communist groups displayed. And they were more free spirited. They were artists or whatever. And, a lot of them really liked Cuba, right? There were a lot of those young anarchists in the 80s and 90s who went to Cuba and they liked Cuba. And it's like, well, Cuba is definitely not an anarchy, right? I mean, there's a pretty strong authoritarian government in Cuba, but, it has leftist values or whatever. And, so there's that. And then in like around the time of the Ron Paul movement, when the Ron Paul stuff started going in like the late Bush years, you got this layer of people that were anarcho-capitalists, right? And that was, I guess, Milton Friedman, the austerity economist. His son wanted to make a name for himself. So his son said, well, I'm an anarcho-capitalist, right? Well, I'm an anarchist because I believe in just total capitalism. That has nothing to do with the history of anarchism. Anarchism as an ideology is a variant of the socialist movement, right? Historically, right? Generally among the Marxist or the socialist anti-capitalist left, there are three variations, right? The primary one is what's called social democracy. And social democracy believes capitalism just kind of naturally, one step at a time, evolves into socialism. And so, the idea is, we elect labor union aligned politicians, and we pass reforms, and socialism is the sum of reforms. And they tend to support imperialism because they think the West is the most advanced because we have the most human rights over here, etc. That's social democracy. Then you have Marxism, Leninism, or communism, which is anti-imperialist, which says that there is a seizure of power. And then you have anarchism, which is the third. It's like considered the ultra-left deviation, right? Social democracy is the right deviation. Anarchism is the left, ultra-left deviation. Anarchism seeks to create a socialist society on the basis of voluntarism without coercion. The most popular form of anarchism was what was called syndicalism, which was the idea that the labor unions would seize control of their factories, and the factories would then be autonomous and just sell to other factories. And that's what was advocated by Peter Kropotkin. That was what was advocated by the Spanish anarchists, etc. It was the idea, well, we'll have autonomous factories that are run by the workers, and they'll sell goods and trade goods with other factories. For some reason, anarchists love the peasantry, right? And that doesn't really make sense because it's about their autonomous factories or whatever, but the peasant associations. Peter Kropotkin, the big Russian anarchist, he was an adherent of the Narodnik movement, and he was always trying to buy land, and he bought up big tracts of land where the peasants owned the land cooperatively. But yeah, basically, social democracy, they want to gradually reform the power structure of the government. They want to gradually reform the government to get socialism. Communists want to seize control of the government. Anarchists want socialism without government involvement. Those are the three definitions. Though, as was hinted in the question that I'm answering now by Auta Third, the overwhelming majority of anarchists, people who call themselves that, don't know what I just said. They love punk rock music. It's really cool, man. No one can tell them what to do. That's why they're anarchists, man. And they've never read an anarchist book because that would be uncool. That's like nerds. Nerds read books, man. So 90% of people who call themselves anarchists have no idea what they're talking about. Now, one weird thing that I've noticed in the last, especially since Occupy Wall Street, this is when I really noticed it, but it's really escalated. As BreadTube was this, is that there's been a real convergence between anarchism and social democracy. The two used to be the exact opposite, right? Social democrats are saying, let's vote and gradually get people elected and reform capitalism. And the anarchists are saying, no, we don't even want to seize control of the government. We just want to build autonomous worker cooperatives, etc. So they used to be the opposite. But in a weird way, there's a layer of people who are social democrats who call themselves anarchists in order to sound more radical. Noam Chomsky is a classic example of this. Noam Chomsky always says, oh, I am so radical. I am Noam Chomsky. I'm just the most radical person that ever existed. Vote for the Democrats, and it's like Noam Chomsky is a social democrat, but he calls himself an anarchist because in theory, he's for some ultra democratic worker, whatever. But if you look at his practice, the question is not about what you're for, right? The question is, what tactics do you advocate? All Marxists, all socialists eventually want to create a stateless, classless world. That is the ultimate conclusion. The question is, how do you get there? Do you get there by gradually having capitalism transform into socialism? Do you get there with the seizing of power, or do you get there with voluntary cooperative associations or workplace autonomy or whatever? That's the difference, right? But that Noam Chomsky did that. He always would say, "Oh, I am an anarchist," when in reality he's a social democrat. But then during Occupy Wall Street, I noticed that there was a lot of social democrats calling themselves anarchists. And then BreadTube, right? That was their whole thing, is like, if you advocate state socialism, central planned economy, then you're a Nazi. And socialism really just means, a worker cooperative. Duh. It's like the Vosh crap, the Vosh and Thought Slime and all that kind of garbage, right? That stuff is, social democracy, but it gives itself a radical veneer, right? Right? So anyway, I hope that answers your question. But yeah, anarchism is, I don't know. It's all over the place. You know, and right now I would say the majority of social democrats call themselves anarcho-communists or anarcho-socialists or anarchists or whatever, but they're actually, in practice, they're social democrats, right? I bet you half the people that campaign for AOC and are under the age of 30 will tell you they're anarchists. And it's like, well, actually, you're not an anarchist. You are a social democrat. You are campaigning for a pro-imperialist elected official who you believe will gradually change things. That's called social democracy. No, but I want worker cooperatives, man. I'm so okay, that's great. You can talk up and down about how radical you are, but the question of social democracy, communism, anarchism is a question of tactics. By voting for AOC, you are engaging in social democracy. You know, and that is where I quibble with these things. And that, you know, this is why, I mean, I don't even use the communist label anymore, because I believe in God, because communism has come to mean so many different things, right? Labels are, they serve a purpose for the person who takes them on, right? And people take on the label of anarchist because it gives them the feeling of being radical, right? So there you go. Anyhow, words meaning changes over time. So anyhow, all right. So I guess we had one question tonight. It was a good question. All right. Well, tell you what, I will remind you all one more time that I need your support. I'm going to put on the video for the conference, and I will then answer. That'll be this one last chance while I'm showing the video about the conference. If you want to send one more question, feel free. If not, I'll sign off after that. Here we go.
Friends, how you doing today? I'm letting you know, the Center for Political Innovation, we are about to do, on July 12th, the biggest event that we have ever done. It will be our national gathering in Chicago on July 12th. And it's going to be really, really special. We are talking with a number of important anti-imperialist voices, a lot of different communities. There's going to be musical performances, dance performances, there's going to be great speeches, and it's going to be a whole day gathering dedicated to anti-imperialism. I am committed, and CPI has always been committed to building an in real life network of people. And we carry out real operations. We were at the inauguration of Trump with our Trump and Kim banner saying only peace can make America great again. We were on the streets of Chicago at the Democratic National Convention with a book exposing what Kamala Harris and who she really is and what she's really about, and it was really, really important. We have 1,000 copies of our book about the Houthis that are being distributed with the poster of the convention on the back to people who would never go looking for this. We are putting door hanger flyers on doors of people, again, that would never go looking for this. We're not performing and trying to make ourselves feel good. We're actually trying to build a network of people that can be anti-imperialists in America. It's not easy to do. It's very difficult in these times to build a real in-life organization. People have their issues. We live in a very strange time, but we have to do it. And we are committed to continuing this project. This video is basically me telling you we need your support. In order to pull off our convention that includes our 7-day program for our members around the country to come to Chicago, includes our huge convention on July 12th, where we're gonna fill up the Midwest Convention Center, in order to have an effective national planning meeting and gathering in Chicago the day after on July 13th. In order to do what we need to do, we need to fill up that auditorium and we need money. And there's really no way around that. We need you to donate to the Center for Political Innovation. We have set up a GoFundMe, and a lot of people have already contributed. We already raised a couple $1,000, but it's not enough. In order to really pull off our July activities and really have a win for anti-imperialism, we need your support. We need you to go to the GoFundMe right now and donate $5 or $20. We need you to go to the donate button on the CPI website and send us $100 or $50, whatever you can do. If we're gonna do what we need to do in July and build the organization and have the mega anti-imperialist rally that needs to happen on July 12th and solidify the network that we're building to continue to carry out the great operations that we do, we need you to help us out. Every cent that we raise goes into building this group. I'm lucky I have a paycheck with everything that's going on. I'm surviving, and
I have consistently put a huge amount of the money that I have, my own resources, my own funds, into CPI because I believe in it, because it needs to happen, because this organization is necessary. I'm looking at what I've got and my own resources and my own bills and all of that, and I'm looking at what's already been paid for, and it's not enough. I mean, it's just not enough. I can't just pay for everything myself. We have membership dues and other things, but we need a special gift. We need a special gift to make July happen. We need you to give us a special contribution so that we can make sure the July events go smoothly, that the housing for the people coming in out of town is covered, that the speakers that are being flown in, their airfare is properly covered. We need you to make a special one-time gift to make this July gathering, this anti-imperialist summit that we are organizing. We need you to help us make it happen and help us make it a success. Small gift, big gift, whatever you can do. We need you to help us with it. But you know what? I'll just say this. If it's a matter of send us a gift or come, we'd rather you come. We'd rather you be there. It's much more important that you be there on July 12th. If you can't afford to give us a gift, but you can afford to come to town, if there's one event that you come to this year, make it July 12th. CPI, Center for Political Innovation, we're doing something that nobody else is doing, and we're doing it right. We're not doing it in a way that we're trying to win the internet. We're not doing it in a way that we're trying to make ourselves feel special or act like we're cool. We're building what needs to be built. We are building the real connections. And if you can understand why what we're doing is so important, if you can understand why anti-imperialism is the future, but we have to break out of the narrow niche circles and internet culture and get to the masses of people with real outreach. If you can understand that, please give us a gift. We're trying to build an actual movement to win new people to anti-imperialism and continue to carry out operations to change the conversation in America so that we have a country where there's a mass movement demanding justice for working families and an end to these wars, that we're saying no to World War III, we're saying no to the emerging low-wage police state. That's what we urgently need. So if you can help us in any way, send us a gift. If you can be there on July 12th, be there. This is the biggest endeavor CPI has ever done, and it's going to lead to even bigger things. We don't back down. We don't go away. If we were going to back down, we would have done it a long time ago. And if we were one of their plants or one of these fake anti-imperialists, they would be making it a lot easier for us. We have been facing a lot of challenges, but we continue to achieve great victories. So we need your support. Please send us a contribution. Please be there on July 12th at the Midwest Convention Center in the Chicago area. It's right near the O'Hare Airport. It's going to be awesome. We need you there. Thank you.
So there you go. There you go. So if there's any more questions, I don't see any more questions. Yeah, so I don't see any more questions. So on that note, we'll probably be wrapping this up. See you in Chicago. We're going to have some various compilation streams that'll be showing. That'll be fine. And yeah, we got some compilation streams. That'll be good. And what else? Whoa, sorry about that. Just looking at something. Yeah, I think we'll wrap this up. So see you in Chicago. And yeah, look out for if you're able to send us a contribution, that would be great. Link is down below. We certainly, again, just trying to make sure the cash flow and everything is in order. If you're coming to Chicago, see you in Chicago. If not, we're going to have some videos on this channel. Starting Monday, we're going to have like some long compilation videos. So, yeah. All right, everybody. So I guess we'll put on the closing video and we'll be done. New upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.